Hey there YouTube, welcome to Big Mike Beard Wisdom. So today we're going to clean off the outside of the Gambler a little bit. And the big reason why is because underneath there's quite a good bit of sand and stuff. I just kind of want to get the sand and other stuff that's on the underbody kind of washed off. Just in case there's salt, that way the salt stops working and goes away. The little bit of dirt and grime and stuff like that under the hood, I'm not overly worried about, but I can use the hose real quick to blast it off. And you may or may not be able to use a pressure washer, depending on how the vehicle's kind of set up, and really given your experience with the pressure washer. So some vehicles, like especially I think on the Escalade, the fuse box and stuff has a do not pressure wash emblem on it. And a lot of the reason why is that your car isn't so much waterproof as much as it's set up with a bunch of water diversion items. That way it diverts the water somewhere. That way it just keeps it from going to the big areas. So like under here, you can see it's got this rubber gasket. What that rubber gasket does, I'm not a whole lot sure. I don't know if it's meant to just keep the hood and under hood gases and stuff like that from getting up into like the air vents up here. But situations like the window seals, the window itself might be glued in place, in which case that's sealed to the body, but there may be other things going on. So this actual seal here probably doesn't 100% seal everything, and it just helps divert water away. Same thing with your sunroof. So your sunroof just has this rubber gasket here that touches the body there. As you get dirt, grime, scratches, all sorts of other stuff, it allows more water in, which is why you've got drains in there to divert the water down on the inside of the car through a hose and out the body somewhere. Door panels and stuff are kind of set up that way they overlap, so you can see the gap in the fender there and the gap in the door here. And the idea is that air and water as you're driving flows this way. This is the high point, this is a lower point, so it'll flow from on here over to here easily. If this was set up backwards, so if the door was the high point and the fender was the low point, wind and water would catch inside of there and then be forced directly into whatever kind of seals are in there. Then with the doors, depending on how vehicles are set up, a lot of older cars had just one door body seal. So, that was a weird noise. So either on the door or the body itself, and manufacturers started to find out, hey, if I put on two seals, it gets even quieter. So a lot of vehicles will have even more seals as time goes on. And it's one of those things where the seal just goes around it and helps keep everything from up top coming in. So you can see down here, once you get down here, any water and stuff will just shed down there. Now, the trunk area, this can be an interesting spot, because this, I'm pretty sure I've got a water leak somewhere. So you can kind of see, you got the windshield up here, and the rain gutter kind of stuff up there. So the water's going to get diverted into that rain gutter, hit the windshield's gasket, come down this way, and head into here. So you can see there's junk in here, which means that essentially this isn't sealed and there's stuff that can get here. This stuff being dirty, that can cause buildup, and especially if it gets on your seals here, that can cause water to come through. Otherwise, if you're up here like in Minnesota, if that has like salt or something like that in it, and there's any little scratches, that's going to cause rust to start forming, and your car to start getting weight savings. The bad kind of weight savings. So the trunk seal's in decent shape. There's a couple spots where it's a little bit messed up. This intersection of the seal doesn't really do a whole lot, except for look better than just a, a grippy piece here. So because what actually seals is kind of this spot here. So you can see the line where that touches. That line is from this big fluffy seal. So if this big fluffy seal gets a hole in it, then you're going to be in trouble. Little things like these scratches and stuff in it could cause a little bit of water leakage, but it might not also. And then, if everything's working properly, water flows past this trunk seal and then right into these lights. So this is going to be another area of how water can get in. I was smelling around back here, and there's some type of dirt and moisture stuff back there. So if I look here, you can kind of see those bolts and screws, relatively decent shape. That one looks pretty rough though. So that might be getting wet. And it's one of those things where the light probably seals to the body with this gasket here. Now, that's probably why there may or may not be a really good seal on these guys here. But as long as that seal's going all the way around and goes around these bolts like it should, then hopefully that keeps the water out. But if we look right there, you can kind of see a watermark. So there's water getting in right there, both from that bolt and from that body section there. So it's one of those things where I need to take this light out, try and figure out what's going on. If you're getting a wet spot in your car like that, and you're not sure where it's coming from, a simple trick to do is to go ahead, shut everything down, make sure everything's kind of wiped dry on the inside. That way you can kind of figure out where it's coming from, and then take a hose and run water over the vehicle. You can even kind of hit it from certain angles, so you can hit it from around the lights to see which way it's maybe coming in, because maybe that's not running down from here and going in, maybe it's coming from over here. The other thing I was worried about was these big old rust holes filling up over here. The rust in the door isn't good either, because then the door will hold water. It's really handy if you've got something, so let's say you think your sunroof's leaking, you can have someone else hold the hose and spray up here while you're inside taking a good look around to see if maybe, you know, water's coming in that way. But if you can't, then you can always just hose it down yourself and then check and see if it's wet afterwards, and then wash it a different way, check and see if it's wet afterwards. So that's the quick way to kind of check for some leaks. But when I wash this off real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of focus on this trunk area just to see if I can see any wet spots around this light, to make sure it's the light that's letting water in and not something else weird like whatever's going on with this seal here. So, because it's possible that there's a clip or something in here that's letting water in, which may be flowing down here and then getting back that way. It all kind of depends. And for doing under the hood, my plan isn't to really focus that much on like the engine area. It's just maybe just a quick sprint around the edge, try and blast the weird stuff off the back there, get some of that dirt and grime off of there, and then come back through here, and then probably shut the hood. There's certain engines that you get water somewhere, and you're going to have a hell of a time getting them started. Some of the Ford V8s, it's like if you would sweat near one of the coilover covers and stuff, it would get water in there and they just won't start. You've got to pull the coil over, and then somehow, even though maybe you just had like a teeny tiny drop of sweat somewhere, it made it all the way in there and filled that sucker up. So you want to be really careful depending on what kind of vehicle you have. I don't know this particular vehicle really well, so I'm not going to be spraying down the main engine part. I don't know if that takes water in there really easy, and if I'm going to have troubles later. So I'm going to try and avoid the engine as much as possible, but just kind of scheme around the edges real quick. And then I'm not going to focus on any kind of modules, because you don't want to spray on those or fuse boxes any harder than you need to, because any water intrusion in there can cause weird problems as well. All right, then quick moment of truth. Time to see if I put water where water did not want to be. Nope, so far so good. Seems to be idling smoothly. And the big reason to get this nice and clean was that I had a nice clean shot at all the hardware and stuff for the big can, a PB Blaster. Gonna be a control arm day, busy day, lots of stuff to do. But you can really see all the sand and dirt that I blew off this thing. And it's one of those things where that sand and dirt can cause, you know, excess rust and stuff to form in certain areas. It'll hold moisture in. So kind of one of those things you want to be careful of. And for like people that live down dirt roads, it's amazing. They're the super fine, like moon dust kind of dirt that gets in places and causes you not to be able to do stuff. Like sometimes you can't depress a connector because there's so much dirt back behind it that the whole cavity where, you know, the locking mechanism goes and stuff is just full of dirt. So you can't really disconnect it very easily. You got to play with it with picks for a while, and that adds time, which is going to add money to your bill. So it's kind of one of those things where you definitely want to take a chance and wash your stuff off either before you take it in somewhere for repair, or at least somewhat regularly to help remove this junk. Because like I had no idea about that rusty spot. But you blow that dirt off and there it is. And you can see I'm spraying the water up here on the windshield. Just how all that body deflection works. So everything's coming down here right over the light. Hopefully. Maybe a little bit under the light. And around the light. Oh boy. Door body seal, nice and dry for the most part. A little damp right there, but that might have gotten wet when I opened the hood. But it's the inside that matters, so the inside's not wet though. So even though I don't see any water, when I stick my finger down in here, it is a little damp. So there probably is a little bit of water getting in there. So I'll have to tackle another day. And there's a better view of the water by that rear taillight. So real quick, we'll take those bolts out, see where it's coming in. And I just noticed it's wet over here too. So this looks like same boat over here. Taillight stuff dripping down, letting water get in there. I think this side has a smell because this side has like sand and other objects over here to retain the water. This side's nice and clean, so more than likely the water's leaving. All right, and there's some type of drain here. You can see outside through the rust holes, but there's a drain that might be one of the drains to like the sunroof or something, which would be interesting if the drains run all the way back here as opposed to down the A-pillars. That's what I thought might have been the issue, was that like if one of these was clogged. But I bet that one's probably fine because it shows it's wet. But if it had a lot of water in there, then it would be clogged. So slip that back in place. But yeah, you can see sand and other junk that's over here that's probably holding this moisture in as opposed to just letting it dry up and go away. Where this popped out, you can kind of see this is the top part. Fairly dry, very dirty. You can definitely see cracks as this foam has deteriorated over time. This part here is wet, so this is the bottom. And then in here, you can see there's more of that dirt. There's a bug. There's the bolt holes. You can kind of see the marks from where it was sealed up and where dirt lived. So that's pretty interesting. I'm almost wondering if it was right here, if the dirt just allowed it to flow down through. So real quick, I'll clean that up, both on the body and on the seal here, and then I'll throw just a little bit of silicone on it and put it back in. So yep, that section where I thought it was probably sneaking in right there, that should be this spot right here, which you can see it was definitely sneaking in right there. Lights back in. I cleaned up this area pretty good. And then these things here had kind of a weird plastic center part with like a rubber outer. The ones on this side both kind of just fell apart. The two on this side, I didn't mess with that front one. You can still see that front one still looks a little wet. This one here, I popped out and dried off. It's almost like it's just a little body seal. And I'm not sure if it's meant to act as a drain to help, you know, get the water to go down in like a small rubberized cavity as opposed to sitting on the metal or what, but essentially I put this one back in. This one's lost to the ether. So I put a little bit of masking tape on it, just 2 layers, and then I cut a quick X in it. That way hopefully it'll let water out, but not water in that hits like the bottom of the vehicle. And that's just kind of a temporary band-aid fix for the moment until I kind of figure out how I want to actually fix it the right way. And if this is going to be a situation where I've got to have something almost like a straw with a rubber nozzle at the bottom to allow dirt and debris and water to go down into the straw and then hit that bottom nozzle piece and drip out, or if it's something where I can just seal this up and I'll be fine. And then just in case you've ever wondered why when you slam your car door it doesn't blow the windows out, it's because of vents like this. So these are the vents that are in your car that allow air to move through it. All right. And then we had pretty good rain last night, so it's a good chance to check this. You can see it's nice and dry in there. So that definitely fixed that a little bit. Now, I'm just assuming that any kind of water that gets down in here or over in there is due to the Minnesota weight savings. That should be fixed probably in a month or so. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll check you next time. Woo, this was sandy. That's what you get when you live on a beach. Not me, the Acura. The Acura lived on a beach.